here's an interesting thought. Should clothing be considered a form of harassment? And I say the S because YouTube is very strict about certain words, but should that be a form of harassment if you're in, say, a place of work and you're indecently exposed to a point where it is affecting someone else around you? It's making them uncomfortable. I know we talk a whole lot about actions and about how you speak to someone, but at what level does your actions of what you put on or don't put on your body actually need to be accounted for in this same conversation? I think a lot of people act like, oh, just wear what you want. You know, they have these big conversations about it. And one thing that they're not talking about is how we dress. Now, this is not saying that people shouldn't have accountability for how they treat you, that whatever you wear just should be free for all. At the same time, what level of accountability do we have to have in certain places, especially like your place of work, your place of business, or in a school as a teacher? What level of accountability do we have to have? And at what point is this actually indecent exposure and harassment? Because I do think that women are harassing men with some of what they're wearing, especially in certain areas. I do think it's important to dress for where you're going and to dress for the lowest common denominator in the room, having respect for everyone that's in the room. I think that is vitally important. There are going to be a lot of people who are offended by what you're wearing, and I do think that matters. And I do think there is some level. That's why we have indecent exposure laws, which are very loose. And a lot of them have gotten looser and looser. But I do think in places of business and certain areas of work, there should be consequences. And this should be certain types of dress should actually be considered harassment. I do think at some level it is harassment. That is obviously a controversial opinion. And it's just a thought that I'm throwing out there. It's not like I'm like going to the courts, doing anything about it, but I just want to know your thoughts. If you think that, at least in some environments, that what you wear or do not wear should actually be considered and given consequences to harassment. What do you think? I know this is going to be a really quick one because I don't have all the answers on this. I just know that this is something that I've been thinking since I had that video about why don't women wear clothes anymore. And a lot of people are like, let people wear what they want. And I'm thinking, in certain situations, I don't think women should wear what they want. If a woman, and you know what I'm talking about, goes to a kids' movie premiere and they are wearing lingerie, I think that is a level of harassment against children. I don't think that is acceptable behavior, and I think there should be consequences for that. That person should have been kicked out. They shouldn't have been allowed. They should have had to put a coat on or something. I know that it can be like what level of undress is appropriate, but I'm going to say if I have to question your level of undress around children, then maybe you aren't dressed enough. Maybe that's the level. So of course it's hard to regulate that fully. And so I really think it is up to businesses. The private business can kick you out for whatever. They can say no shoes, no shirt, no problem. Or they can say, get out without having a suit on. So there are different levels of establishments for that. But I'm thinking more at work, like we really need to establish rules about dress codes. I think we need to bring back dress codes. In school, we used to have dress codes. In Venezuela and the entire country, you have a uniform. You have to wear a certain color of a polo shirt based on what grade you're in. And so we had that exact same rule at the school that I was in. And so it wasn't like any fancy private school outfit. It was, slacks or a skirt and a polo shirt of the color. We had beige as a high schooler. And then I think middle school had light blue shirts, and then elementary school there was white shirts, and then I think kindergarten had red. So it was just the polo shirt, and then you had like your logo of your school on it. Anyone that I knew that went to school in Venezuela, like whether you were going to a local school or whether you're going to a private school, I had to wear that uniform. And even in that uniform, we had dress codes for it. We couldn't do certain things. We would roll up the sleeves and stuff, but like that was about all you could do. And we had a dress code of how short our shorts or our skirts could be. There was a dress code, and if we didn't comply with it, we had to go home. We could wear heels at high school, but you couldn't when you were younger, so they had a dress code on that. I mean, in Venezuela, a lot of women do wear heels, even young women, so that was a little more normal, I guess, for that culture. So that was when I was growing up, and obviously things have changed if you're looking at social media now, and I do think we need to bring back dress codes. I think there are certain types of dress codes that shouldn't be allowed. We weren't allowed to wear pajama pants, even if they were the blue colors. Like, we had to wear actual clothes that were made to go outside, not to sleep in. And unless you had like a spirit day or a special day like that, you could like wear something interesting. I know that there used to be in the 90s a dress code of men had to pull up their pants. They couldn't show their boxers. I think we need to bring back dress codes in a lot of different areas. I feel like we've gotten really lax about it. And I honestly think it's because people can't deal with authority. These children aren't being taught to respect authority. They're not being taught to have boundaries. They're not being taught accountability or self-awareness. They're not being taught about respecting other people in a large environment. I believe that we should have some level of respect here. And teachers especially, I'm seeing a lot of teachers coming out and wearing really inappropriate things. And I think that they need to have a dress code especially. You need to be a good mentor. You need to be a good example for your students, and you definitely should be not distracting your students as you're trying to teach them. I do think that in businesses, especially in work environments, that there really needs to be some stricter harassment laws and or at least rules in place about those things. I do think that wearing too little in certain environments should be a form of harassment. I do think that. And again, it's a slippery slope, so I'm not saying all the laws should be changed about this, but I do think that establishments and businesses should get harsher on that and adjust their rules, because they adjusted it all about behavioral harassment. But I do think what you wear can be a form of harassment. And this is just a random thought I had as I'm doing like all my quick hits, and I like wrote it down on my list. But let me know what you think. It was something that came up in the comments that a lot of men were feeling that these women were really reeling them in. They were trying to tease them. They were harassing them in a way with it. And then they were upset when the guy couldn't focus and their focus kept going downward. And some men are just like, literally, I can't talk to you because I might accidentally look where nature kind of naturally tells me to look. And then, I'm just over here looking at this and I can't even have a real conversation with you because I'm distracted. Those are real things. I do think that could be a form of harassment. It could possibly be. Now, I'm not a lawyer and these are just thoughts, but I do think those are something that could be addressed and could be looked further into. So I'm interested in what you think about it. I also briefly wanted to mention I am quietly launching a membership. There are several tiers of it. I have my second tier as the lives, but that is, I don't know that it's up or not. I'm getting it approved by YouTube. But I did decide I'm going to launch it and I'm just going to throw it up there. So I don't necessarily suggest you become a member, because I have nothing to really offer in there at this point, but I will have member videos at some point when I have a little more time, and I definitely will be using memberships to do lives. Once I have enough members, I will start doing live streams for members only, because I'm not super comfortable doing a live stream just out in the world, and there will be the live chats for members only as well and those sort of things. So I do have a lot of plans for the membership. I also have a higher tier that's like a GOAT tier, and that's the greatest of all time. That's basically just like if you want to help support the channel. I won't be offended if you don't do it. I don't have a whole lot to offer, but that is where I'm going to secretly be starting to do lives at some point once I get a few members in there. So if you do happen to see it pop up, that's what it is. This is the only time I'm going to say it. This is me telling you about it. And, if you want to, go join the membership if you find it popping up. And also just like and subscribe and comment if you feel like it. If you don't, do absolutely nothing. And that's cool. So I will see you guys. Let me know in the comments what you think about this video, and let me know what you think about this whole how you dress, and if we need to have a little more harassment rules in places of business around how especially women dress, because women tend to be the ones that are dressing a little more inappropriate, in my opinion, at work or in places like schools.
Let's go.